I'm going to call the Finance and Economic Committee work session meeting to order. Thank all of you all for coming. I know this is, I think this time of the year to do this because I knew you were so bored and had little nothing to do, so I'm the worst.
Do you see the stress on our faces?
And I will say up front that Mr. Perkins has been putting a lot of energy into this, and we've been trying to get this done much earlier so that we wouldn't be in this crunch mode. But thanks to snow and all of the other holidays that come up, we've got behind schedule. So thank you very much. We're hoping to keep this meeting to an hour. The main things that we want to accomplish today is to look at the somewhat of an annual schedule of the kinds of presentations that we would like to come before the committee, as well as lend ourselves to talking about other challenges and so forth, processes and things that we could do differently to make it work for everybody. So it's a freewheeling conversation, if you will. I want everybody to feel very comfortable that this is a work session for all of us to put together a work plan and strategy that we feel that would be added value to what we're trying to accomplish in the fields of economic development and finances for the new year. So before we get into the actual meeting itself, called the emergency evacuation that we want to take care of, and Clark.
On activation of the emergency law, signal all persons should immediately evacuate. Please exit the room and use the stairwell to vacate the building. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed down 9th Street and enter the assembly area located in the full public safety building. A person should assist visually impaired visitors with exiting the building.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Okay, so I pretty much stated what the overall objective was. Mr. Lord, what are any changes that you would like to see to the overall objectives that we're trying to accomplish?
I don't think so. I think the objectives were fine. Are they listed in here? Before I say that, where are they?
So if we go back to, I guess, after the days of the background, pretty much maps out some of the things that we've talked about. It maps out, the different committees, the responsibility descriptive of the committee, the agencies and the boards and commissions that report to us. Then there is a proposed guideline for, so we have 4 broad themes. Next page, your proposed major themes for presentation and a proposed schedule of presentation. What it doesn't include, I'd like for us to clarify as well as other modes of operation, broader subject matters that we want to take on as this committee. And you and I have had some discussions about others as well. So we'll have an opportunity to put those things in. Most of the presentations are identified, and we want to talk about those too and see whether or not they flow in an order that is best. And whether or not there are other things that we should put in as well as presentation as well. Some of our policies and procedures and those kinds of things, whether or not there are things that we need to look at, encouraging to look differently. Hopefully we'll have it. Okay. Welcome. Let's get started. We're right on time. So before we go any farther, I think maybe we probably all know each other, but let's just go around the room and do an introduction. So Melanie Robertson, chair of this committee, and grateful for the opportunity to continue to work with all of our partners and doing a great job. Yeah, finances and economics, where we'd like to go.
Nicole Jones, councilman for the 9th District. Apologize for my tardiness. And I'm just here to support Ms. Robinson, vice chair, but really trying to build a solid structure so that we can track movement on the work that we're doing. How to get out of the minutiae that people do. So, how do you want this shit?
Will Perkins, council staff.
RJ Ward, Deputy City Clerk.
City Clerk. I'm clerk for the committee.
Sharon Ebert, Deputy CAO for Planning and Economic Development Portfolio.
Sabrina Joy, Deputy CAO of Finance Administration.
Sheila White, Director of Finance. Rachel Heitman, Project Development Manager in the Permanent Housing Development.
Michelle Brown Peters, Deputy Director for Housing and Community Development.
Matt Welch, Acting Director for Department of Economic Development.
Jessica Singer, Senior Policy Advisor for.
Megan Brown, Director of Budget and Strategic Planning.
Okay,
Folks in the back.
sorry.
Matthew Slatzer, Chief of Staff.
Danny Wagner, Interim Deputy Chief of Staff, Council side.
Taya West, Council Liaison to Council
All right, so with that background and scope, in the next page that you'll see after the agenda, the main objective that we're trying to achieve today is to collaborate and make sure that we have a plan that we all feel like we help us achieve the goals that we have. And there's quite a bit of information in the appendix. It basically just gives you additional information on all of the standing committees of council, what their descriptions are, the agencies and the committees that report to them, so that if we get, and where this will be an additional benefit to us, when we start looking at things that may cross over from one committee to the other, it give us an opportunity to kind of look at some of the boards and the agencies that report to the other standing committees and look at ways as to whether or not we can eliminate as much duplication as possible so you don't have to show up to 3 different committees to make the same kind of presentation. So I'm going to encourage us to reflect back on that and use that as a guide to help us with some of those things. So this committee, you see on page 5 of the agenda, the description of the committee, kinds of things that we're charged with the responsibilities, the agencies that report to us, which includes minority business, finance, human resource, economic development, citizen service and response, and procurement services. And then there's a host of boards and commissions that we appoint members to, the mayor appoints members to, that usually comes back to this committee to make some types of reports. And when we talk about reports today, I want to encourage us to think about what we get in reports and whether or not we feel like those reports are valuable, if they're giving us information that we actually use, or you feel like you get a report and then you get questions that have already been answered in the report, and if there are ways that we should look at how we can do those better as well. And Sabrina, if you don't mind if I call you that, we've talked lots of times about how do we get the more thought-provoking planning sessions, work sessions where we can actually have discussions about those kinds of things, rather than just the council, in the council chamber that is adopted and it's about just approving legislation. So let's make sure that we kind of talk about that a little bit today as well. So if you flip over to the next page, 4 major themes for presentations we want to talk about. And this is an opportunity that I want to weigh in on. So we're talking about taxes and revenue sources, expenditures, economic development, and any follow-up outstanding reports that we feel that we need to close out on so that we can get those things done and behind us, as well as any other areas that there have been significant information put out about. I'm kind of thinking about in the line of some of the audits that may have a lot of financial implications, but then we'll help make it sure that we're not crossing over to another committee's oversight and review of those kinds of things. Does finance tend to almost touch any and everything that happens? And so sometimes, there seems to be, Nicole and I've had discussions about land use committee and some of the things that go to land use as it relates to housing. When we have a land use and housing committee, that seems like it's more logical that they would go there instead of going to
Human services.
Human services, right? So, some of those kinds of things, and we want to have the liberty to kind of think about how we make it more effectively as well. One of the areas that, I feel that we have not, that we want to see done different, a lot more energy put in is economic development. I strongly feel that our dependency on the level of real estate tax as our source of revenue needs to be diversified, and economic development is the means by which we want to see us strategically have a strategy through this committee with you guys to do that. So we know we have a housing plan, which I feel is more aligned with the land use and housing committee than it is with this committee. But the economic development plan that we put together, that is, what I want to be able to accomplish is that we take plans off of the shelf and we actually look at the worked out strategy, and then we're pacing ourselves. And maybe those are those work sessions that we're having to just pace ourselves to make sure. And if our strategy is generating the level of revenue that we want to see it happen. And we realize that all of that stuff happens in a timeline. It don't all happen at one time. But certainly, we're looking at 4 years for us, okay? And 4 years for the mayor, 4 years for this administration. I would like to see us set some expectations of definable goals, measurable goals that we want to be able to achieve. And then we have these work sessions to make sure that we are making it happen. And we invite other people to the work table, where we need those strong and engaging partners to make that happen. So what do you guys think?
I think the doable goal. We've been having conversations about Southside recently, so I think that should come to the front of the conversations as we go into budget, the next 2 years of budget. So definitely, I think, there's been a lot of work done with housing. It'd be great to give you guys an update, put it all in perspective of all the housing related activities, and then talk about where we see the gaps. Where else do we need to go?
Yeah, I think, if I'm hearing you correctly, economic development is all about how to grow the city, right? How to grow the revenue for the city. That's what we should be focusing on. And you and I have been having these little sidebar conversations about, how do we grow enough revenue so that we're not where we are today with trying to manage a budget that's extremely tight? And where are the opportunities? And I think we just have to think outside of the box, outside of sometimes the city limits. We own property outside of the city limits, for those of you who don't know that. And so, yeah, we're looking at a lot of possibilities of how do we generate tax revenues for the city, because that's really our end game. Yes, it's about jobs, and I know there's a lot in the strategic plan for the equitable economic development. That was the plan that we SPEED is sort of the acronym for it, but it doesn't lay out what I think is as broad goals, like reducing poverty by X percent, which surprisingly we somehow did. I think it was 5%, and I think somehow we did that. Yeah, it was. But I kept saying, oh, that's gonna be the hardest one to do.
Yeah, me too. I relate.
But it was easy. It's easy to do some of the job stuff because CoStar was coming in with 2,000 new jobs. The category that it didn't really touch, it talked about capital investment, but it didn't talk about how do we increase the city's revenue by X percentage, right? And that's what we really should be focusing on right now. And that's where I'd like to take the conversation.
So one of the things that I speak to a lot, that I'm always interested in looking at our more strategic plan as it relates to finance and economic development, and this committee's role in that process of looking at where the city is and where we want to see it go. One of my greatest concerns is that we are not strategically making the right kind of investment that keep us competitive. And inclusion is a big part of that for me. And I think that that's extremely important as it relates to CoStar is great. But if CoStar is only going to hire people that have master degrees or folk that they're going to pay $150,000 a year, and if the majority of the diversity of our portfolio of economic growth that we look at is about attracting companies with high-end jobs, then the level of affordability and competitiveness as a city will become narrowed if we reduce our population to just a certain population. And actually that robs us more than it benefits us. We will become a smaller city instead of a growing city as we are now. And so those are some of the kind of guiding principles for economic growth and development that I think that are reason why we want a strategic plan, because our driving force is the mission behind what we want to make sure the city looks like.
So are you saying you want a strategic plan for this committee?
Well, I think it needs to, what I feel like our committees need to do is feed into the overall plan for the administration and council collectively, but how we take up, what role we play in making sure that we're and so either you work it from the bottom up or you work it from the top down with assignments. And so in some ways it's going to work both ways. But so that's more the workforce work plan part of this conversation that we like to have. But for the sake of making sure that we get this discussion into within the hour that we're hoping to keep it in, if it's okay with everyone, let's move to the actual presentation schedule that we have and see how that aligns, and then come back to some of the more meaningful discussions as we go from there. So, March 19th is the first one that we have on the calendar. We just, next week.
Yeah. So, please comments
Next
about
week.
this?
Yes.
So when I look at the schedule, it's granular. It's not kind of matching what you're saying in terms of strategic visioning. It also requires a lot of staff time, and we are stretched thin. So March 19th, if I'm reading this correctly, Will, you're saying there's a presentation or whatever discussion on tax rates, but also collective bargaining, and also after all in the same week. That is not doable. It's just, it is, we're talking about the same people doing the same things all the time. So capacity wise, we cannot do it. So Act 4 has to be done. There's a requirement, it has to go to the governing body. So that is in the process of being scheduled.
Actually, I talked to the city auditor this morning, and they are on schedule to present at the audit committee on
Next week.
next week.
But it also has to go before the full body, right?
Yes, and so that is, I've asked to be included on the meeting for Monday.
This Monday.
The informal, I have not received confirmation from my auditor, which I normally have as part of the presentation.
Okay, so it's going to the audit committee next week,
Yes, on Tuesday.
but it does have to come to council.
It does.
Does it have to come to the full council, or is it sufficient enough if it comes to the finance committee?
I think it has to go to the governing body.
Yes, it is.
To the governing body. Okay, so then we should move this to the OD.
Yes, OD or informal or something. Yes.
At least the full body would be OD or council. I'm proposing that we move it to OD right now.
That's fine. It just needs to go before the full body. That's the requirement.
Well, let me say this. We're taking it off of this committee.
Yes.
Let's do that.
Yes.
We'll find where it goes. Okay. All right. So the collective bargaining piece, it has such a huge fiscal impact on our overall budget, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason for the presentation is for us to be more proactive in understanding what that is and how we weigh that as it relates to our overall fiscal status. You're saying March is crazy, we can't do that.
March, especially March 19th, we are in the process of finalizing the budget. All kinds of.
So what are you saying is reasonable for March?
Do we have a finance committee meeting in March?
Yeah, the 19th.
We
I lived
haven't
it
had,
today here.
Yeah.
we have not had, we didn't have one in February.
No, yeah. And I mean, I guess my question is the challenge putting together a presentation? Because the information should already be there. So is the challenge putting together a presentation that's taking up the time, or?
It's also brain capacity, to be honest with you. We're shutting down the budget, and, you know, there's just a lot of stuff going on right before we present the budget. So March 19th to schedule a presentation. I can't do it, I can tell you that, because my mind is on the budget.
But this is in the budget, correct?
What is the collective bargaining?
Yes.
Yes,
Right.
and the presentation was given when you approved the bargaining agreements.
Right, but how long ago was that?
Last year when you approved the budget.
Right.
Agreements. And we still have 2 more
Right,
that have not been agreed to yet. So those are gonna come before you as soon as.
as a part of this year's budget.
Yeah, so there'll be collective bargaining outlined in the budget process, in the budget presentation.
But we haven't come to a agreement with the other 2 yet.
Yeah, but
But we know what kind of money we have to spend.
yeah, so that's all gonna get covered in the budget presentation. So that's what I'm saying. Some of this is overlapping with all of the budget presentations.
Okay, so let me ask a different question. How important is it for the city council finance committee to be informed with intentionality of recognizing the impact of collective bargaining on our budget? How important is that for you to know that council fully understand and know the impact of that. And when is the appropriate time that we are entertaining that subject matter.
So we will have budget presentations that will be a part of it. And we will go into detail about what the collective bargaining costs are in the year 26 budget.
But that's not what I asked. At budget time, all we're doing is looking at what you have proposed.
Right.
And your justification for what you have proposed. Correct?
Sure, yes.
What I'm asking is to prevent council feeling like we've got to get all of our answers to everything that we want based on the budget that has already been fixed. Right? That is presented to us. If we are a partner in sharing the responsibility of fiscal accountability for the city, and this is a big ticket as it relates to the council being in partnership with making the right decision to make sure that collective bargaining is a fundamental part of our scope of services and taking care of our employees that we commit ourselves to, which we've done. When is the best time for us to have, let's say, when is the best time for this committee to have a work session about collective bargaining?
I would say after we have finalized the agreement. It's not, when it hasn't come to you guys yet. Once we know it's coming to you with the other two agreements, we'll give you a full picture.
Tell me when.
Yeah, I was gonna say, when is that
When do
happening?
It's going through.
we want to walk away with a calendar.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay, so
So-
when?
We have, on general principle, agreed to everything for the remaining two. They're going through their process of ratification now. They've got to finish their process till it comes back to us, signature.
When do you want it on the calendar?
And come back to you on that, when you find out when it's coming back to me.
I will just mention as well while that's happening, there is some level of consideration to trying to not overload the per meeting presentations. So I think we could value that, and I think the extent to which, we want to not stack more than two, at the very most three per meeting. And then I think additionally, I'll just give further context. I think yes, so part of why the structure as it is sort of front loading a lot of the ones that we assume are sort of germane to the budget. So the council members have that context. Totally hear you on the capacity problem. So I think that's why we're having this conversation, is to see what's the right balance for capacity for, making public council hear what they need to.
But we also want to be sensitive to the fact that we don't need a presentation to the finance committee that you feel that you're going to have to make to the full body. Because we are the full body as well.
And I appreciate that, thank you. That's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time on that answer as well. I mean, it's a shared responsibility.
Right.
We have a hell of a job trying to review what you sent us to make some sense out of it and make policy decisions around it. So, in the time frame that you give it to us and the time frame that we have to make it valuable, value added, and not just feel like, well, I gave them a report, but they didn't pay any attention to it. Because if we get it 2 days before the committee, you don't have the deep dive. And so, that's the reason why I said these work sessions may be a part of our scheduling as well. Maybe everything is not a presentation to the committee. Some of it may be a work session for the committee with an outcome of a policy or something that comes before the full committee for a vote and ultimately.
Yeah, and I think ultimately with the committees as well, just based off of what we've been hearing, right? This is how the public and the community also follows along, because sometimes a lot goes on during council meetings. So these committee meetings are being set up in a way where folks can follow along, know what's going on, hear a full presentation without it getting caught up in the informal, the formal, OD, like all those different meetings. So I do think that consideration has to also be made, not just to the committee, but also to the public. Like this is because public also wants a greater sense of, okay, the ordinance was passed, this was done, what now? And it's our responsibility to make sure that we're doing that as well. So that's why we are really trying to lean more into making sure we have what we need to be able to present that during committees so that folks can kind of follow along, as Ms. Robinson was saying.
You got a date, Sabrina?
Yeah, so going back to collective bargaining, we have 3 agreements that are signed. We can talk about those because those have been signed. The other 2 have not been signed. I can get the answer right now, whether or not I can discuss them. I can discuss them.
When?
I can probably do it next week, but it won't be a full-blown presentation. I'll give you a chart. You can talk to the chart.
Okay, then we'll keep it on. All right, the regional competitiveness, which is extremely important to me. And I think that we have actually, we talked to, was it Greca that we talked to about making a presentation about the regional competitiveness?
I should say you floated that. I have not touched it.
Okay. I don't know if that's the right name.
Richmond.
Richmond.
Tourism?
No,
No.
not the tourism board, the Greater Richmond Partnership.
Okay, that's, yeah, it wouldn't be great.
Yeah, Greater Richmond Partnership. Acronyms, yes, crazy. Actually, we were going to ask them to make that presentation to us. They've done a lot of studies on the region and regional competitiveness. That's really what we're hoping to get there.
That's fine.
Okay.
So it's not me. Good.
All righty. So we have 2 presentations in March.
April regional partnership. If you haven't reached out to them, it's short notice, just. But see what they say.
Yes. Thank you.
You need help getting to Jen Wakefield, just let me know.
Thank you.
April, we have we're in budget amendment time for 16 lower than state court said. So I would take April off. I would take April off the table for budget amendments. We're doing a number of presentations.
All right,
So no
so
meeting in April at all.
I'm just saying the 16th, not doable. And we can make
Sabrina, I want to caution you that if everything that you see your response appears to be not doable, it's going to create a little bit of tension.
No, I get it, but
Okay.
yeah, also, I need for folks to understand it is the same people doing the same things.
And I
during
need for
budget.
you to understand that it's the same people doing the same thing with less people, with the final obligation and responsibility of making a decision. Okay? So I just want.
Yeah, and I'm saying 4/16, we have a work session scheduled.
We do?
Yeah.
With who?
Budget.
Y'all created this, who did this?
It hasn't been passed yet, but yeah.
Who created this? Y'all did?
Yeah, so this does not conflict with the meeting, but it is the same day. That is correct.
What time is
Has
it?
the April 14th is capital improvement plan. April 14th. Tentatively is already scheduled. The council budget work session on April 14th currently has the presentation for CIP.
Okay, so let's do this then. What is your economic development staff doing at that time? You good?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have any.
So we're looking, so let's do economic development and let's do the assessor. And we'll scratch budget and so forth since you're doing a presentation anyway.
Yeah, you're gonna get both the debt capacity and all of that during the budget.
Understood. Understood. This is a committee work. The committee work is not for the purpose, the committee role is for the purpose of helping us to come to some conclusions on some things and make more strategic decisions rather than review a budget that has been sent to us, where we're only looking at it from the perspective of whether or not we're going to approve it or amend it. That's a different kind of conversation. Okay. Right. So that's what we have for April.
Yeah, Ms. Robertson, can I clarify? So the first column, is striking that one, or?
No, we're only striking budget, CIP, and debt capacity, because we'll get that in the morning for the full council at 10 o'clock. It appears. So it appears to me that the staff has scheduled a budget work session on the same day that we're having our finance committee meeting.
Finance is at 1.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that 2?
So, finance that too.
No, I was just making, I was trying to see. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
That has been in draft for some time. I'm not sure exactly. It's penciled down. Saturday.
I'm just saying, we need to get that out ASAP, because calendars is gonna be,
Yeah.
it just need to go out like 15 minutes ago.
It is actually.
15 minutes.
So to set the stage for economic development during that week, do you want the economic development projects update, or do you want like potential growth areas that you want to look at and have a discussion on that?
City of Richmond economic indicators, growth areas, growth potentials, where are we thinking, where are we? That will likely include what is there, but it will also include some foresight as to what are our indicators, what are we looking at? That makes sense?
Has to be done collectively because again, we have growth areas in Richmond 300 plan, but we also have things that are popping in the city that weren't in those nodes, right? So if that's what you're thinking about, I think we have to do it maybe collectively, because I don't know. I mean, and this is such a bad year to predict anything economic, indicators, because it's a roller coaster out there right now. But, if we're looking at like where is growth happening and mapping it out, that would probably be us and PDR.
Yeah, well, and actually, we met with PDR last week about kind of pulling together a tool to better map that already where things are happening, so we can have it public facing eventually. So that aligns.
Or is there indicators? Are you looking at economic development trends, which is a more broader?
So there are some really strong things that are going on in the city right now that's really high. Aside from the stuff that we ain't no way to be prepared for, but we should be acknowledging the potential train wreck that is coming our way. And I think we would be foolish to not address that from economic development, but more specifically as relates to revenues as well. And so looking at we've talked about whether or not we need to reduce the speed or amend the speed plan or those kind of things. Beginning to set that framework for what we want to ultimately have a well thought out economic strategy, so that by next year budget time, we are really seeing what we're hoping that we would be having in the pipeline for economic growth for the city. So it's part of that building that process. So this may be the first strategy of a sense of putting those indicators where we're going with them, so that at least we'll have a beginning place. And that may end up resorting in us having a work session occasionally, not during the budget season, but after the budget season. And we want to consider having these work sessions hold like an hour before our standing hour for the committee or something like that on the same day. So that it's either at the end of it or at the beginning of it, so that we can have specific subject in a smaller work session like this. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. All right.
To clarify, I think I'm hearing Ms. Ebert presented the 16th about economic indicators. Is that what you're
Yes, and she had partners that was planning.
Yeah.
Community planning and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
partner in that process.
I want to talk also about, like you and I have just talked about, the loss potential real property tax revenues if the state comes in and, takes a property, for example, that off, the tax rolls, and makes it a state property, which is what's happening right now.
Those are the kinds of conversations that needs to be put in. And it's important that it's put in the public arena. Sure. Because even though we have the work session, the public still is invited to attend, and we'd like to have them in a small room like this. But if we want to make it feel like it's a public opportunity too, we may need to have, like in the 5th floor conference room or somewhere where the public, we won't necessarily have people speaking, right, listening, but we may have presentations from other people that are helping us to fully get our arms around the status of what we're dealing with.
We can combine that with an overall look at how much the city of Richmond is off the tax rolls compared to our neighbors as well.
Yeah.
We are a much larger percentage of property off the tax rolls.
So the first meeting, so if you look at what we have right now in March, and hopefully we'll get this regional competitiveness, and then we're looking at the city indicators as a second follow-up. That gives us a regional perspective. It gives us it should set us up for a real serious conversation. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to line this stuff up to accomplish. Now, Perkins will tell you that Ellen will go home and see something and read something and think about something and say, oh, maybe we should go this way. So disciplining ourselves to stick to the agenda is going to be extremely important. Okay. And I need to put that up. Okay.
Can I also suggest something?
Yes.
That discussion somewhere, wherever it fits, to have a discussion on data centers and the global internet hub. Potential growth.
I think that might be good in land use,
Which one?
the data centers.
I was talking about the revenue aspect.
Oh, okay.
And that's a conversation that I think that we need to share. And with you being the chair of land use, this makes a really nice partnership because we both serve on land use and we both serve on finance. So getting those two committees to be hand in glove and working together. If you all didn't do so many SUPs, it's possible, but
We say get back on, you lose.
We got this. We got
How many?
Okay,
Oh, 10
so-
more minutes. Jesus.
Oh, wow. Okay, so for May, we have adopted the budget, is that correct? We have.
Yes.
We've talked about revenues and we've talked about, so to go back, we have to start having more conversation about our revenue projection methodology and so forth. That's a good thing to have right after we finish the budget.
Sure.
Okay, good.
It's just that one block where we're like down into the budget trenches then.
Well, we've given you the relief that you asked for.
Yes, we can talk about it then.
Okay. So the question is, we did the economic indicators, this economic development plan and pipeline, is that a good continuation of having the bill in the conversation in the right direction.
Yeah, because I think then you get down into the detail.
Okay.
Right?
All right, good. June, how we looking by June? It looks good?
So far out, I can't see.
Okay. That's good, that's good.
Yeah,
This July, any questions about July? The presentations that we have for July.
Sheila, is that your collection month?
June is gonna be the height of collections, so I will be doing delinquent collections in July. So that will be pretty busy. I mean, it generally doesn't slow down for us really until August 15th. Which is when it be.
So can we just,
So we've got delinquent selections in September. Could you combine that billing system and delinquency into one presentation in September?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll combine those two. All right, and that leaves us with only 2 presentations in July, which is great.
But actually, I need to jump in and just, it's not ideal for the EDA one. We can do it, but we are currently in the early stages of planning a FAM tour to bring in businesses from around the country that we, with GRP, to try to showcase Richmond, given it's the Dave Matthews week, so they will be a good time to show off the city. And I imagine because Dave Matthews is playing that night, that folks that are Richmond Region Tourism will be pretty busy as well. So we can make it work, but September might be a better time to get have our best efforts.
Is the meeting with tourism and ED tourism is it on the 16th of July?
Yeah, the tour we're planning to bring folks in for is the 15th and 16th.
On that date?
Yes, it's just that particular date, not the month.
So what? I missed that.
We're planning a big tour that day for potential business prospects.
But what kind?
All right, so
If we ain't got no money, we.
that's where we're trying to rob somebody else.
Yeah.
We're trying to get in somebody else.
this is attracting businesses.
Yes.
This is bringing
It's not what it is.
business economic development.
Wait a minute.
We're asking everybody to come to a conference, it's all right. All right, okay,
So
so surpluses hit us in,
we won't be ready in September. I asked that we switch the two.
which one?
Switch surplus to October. We'll have a better read on that. And then
Okay.
move tax relief up to September. So it'll be Sheila's meeting in September.
Okay. All right, so actually what we put on September could be all 3 of those subject matters in one presentation, seems like to me.
Which three? Oh, the RBA delinquent and the tax relief?
The building system, the delinquency and tax relief program. Okay, so that's one presentation in September.
3.
That's a
Wait.
lot.
Well, but they all
Yeah,
work together. I
they do.
mean, we had this conversation just
They
the
do.
other day. And it's good to put out the carrot and the stick at the same time, you know? Stick is the bill, just in case, you know. Okay, so budget surplus, we move to October. When do you bring us the amended? Which one, for the surplus? Budget amended.
Depends if there is one, we'll bring it after, hopefully, January,
So,
December, January.
yeah, we're supposed to be complete by December. So,
December 15th is when the audit is supposed to be filed. We're late this year because of 2 of our component units. So, and
So October for the fiscal year
we
surplus.
can discuss it, then it won't be final.
Understood. That's the purpose. We want to get in front of actual action. Okay, so what have you overskipped? Did we leave anything off?
I will say that, the November 15th is the date that we set in the ordinance to present the estimate. So it'll still be early in the process, October. So just
Okay,
so.
we skipped, so can we put the tourism back in September?
Yeah.
All right, and we'll put the tax relief the surplus discussion. You said it's due.
I could have it ready November 9th. You would get what you would get on the
So
15th.
let's move that to November 9. And the only thing that looks like I haven't said anything about risk management, minority business study, all of those things will stay in place. The procurement, all of that stays in place. Anything else?
Mr. Howard mentioned data centers. So do you think that could?
I think the data centers is a process. It's a possibility for greater discussion as a revenue source through economic growth and development. And I think that's where we talk more about. Because there are a lot of items that potential development that we want to talk about. I mean, I want to talk about all of the vacant space that we have downtown and office buildings that should be generating revenue. So I think there are pieces that we want to discuss whether or not we can get them into a revenue generating mode.
So I can suggest we can bring in 2 people or 1 person to discuss the global internet at our region. And combine that with data centers, that discussion. And it would be more of bringing in the experts out in the field to talk to you about it. And then you can have how does that fit with our city, where do we go from here discussion? And how do we make it work for us?
So let's decide based on the order that we have the economic growth, because we've not done as much dialogue as we need to start having more seriously about economic development and growth and potential or means of increasing our revenue stream. So we'll have presentations at the committee, but we will also schedule separate work sessions to deal with some of the things so that we prepare for an overall presentation at the committee or to the council.
Say that one more time. How does that work?
So the committee is taking on some of the responsibilities of looking at good proposed recommendation that we want to present to council. So we're putting out these indicators and so forth. That sets some benchmarks of things that we think that we need to do. Work sessions will be, okay, so, data centers is a potential great business venture that we should go after. People will say, well, what should the Office of Community Wealth Building be training people in? So is it training them in that, or is it training them in the medical field? So the people that do evictions would tell us, where we're training people in the medical field is not an sustainable income. And so they're still subject to being low-income families, right? Those are the kinds of principal guidelines that will help us define whether it's the data center we're inviting or it's another industry that we want to have the greatest potential of revenue. And that's a work session. Out of that work session, we may come up with an ordinance, a proposal, or policy that we will ultimately present to the whole council for adoption.
And these are
will
just,
be maybe an amendment to the economic development plan.
right, and these are just like discoveries, right? Like, we're not already talking to people about bringing data centers. This is just what it could do to produce revenue versus we already in talks, because that's what I also want to make sure is, I think in some of this process, as part of where we're trying to get to in the committee, is like we get stuff that has already been in process. There's conversations that have already been established, and then when we get the papers or whatever happens in committees, it's like we're voting on something prior to, and we have no idea. So I just always want to make sure that in any of those conversations, that they are like preliminary. They haven't already been ones that are in the works, and then it's being presented to council as a new thing, but conversation is already happening.
So bringing in who I think you're thinking about is the right thing to start.
Yeah,
at
we're trying to get to where you want to go, is bring in the experts to talk to you about it, explain what it is, explain how the other localities are benefiting off of it. I mean, data centers in the city is going to be very limited because we don't have the land space. But what are the other things that we can do to, piggyback off of that growth? But first we need to understand what data centers do, how they generate revenue, what are the implications of it.
Who they employ.
Right, exactly. So it's an overall discussion to talk about what it is. And then we got the global internet hub coming from the east, all the way through. And that's going to change how a lot of stuff works. So, and I don't think this council has been advised of it or even up to speed on it. So I'd like to bring those people in this type of setting, not in the chamber setting, in this type of setting, to sit and talk and say, this is what this means for this region. And then it gets back to, all right, how do we capitalize on something like that? Right.
And we want to have those kind of discussions so that we don't spend time in January and February talking about what are our priorities. We want those discussions to lead us into priorities so that by October, November, whatever, no later, God forbid, in December, we know where we want to see this budget align itself. And we know why, because we also know what kind of revenue we'll see and generate for us. To prepare us for things that we know we need extra revenue for.
And we should talk about it, the overlap with land use, because my thing that immediately is bubbling to the top is like, how does the global hubs and the data centers then align with our sustainability plan?
Right.
So it's just a lot of, like, if we can get the conversations rolling beforehand, then we make decisions that are better for not just the money, the people.
So I would even suggest, you're going to go through budget, we're going to talk about indicators. So if you look at that month of June, if we start, instead of doing those pieces, those two presentations, start talking about global internet, global hub, the global internet hub, and also data centers. So whatever it is, whatever topics it is, then that leads you into the thought process of the fall of where are we going.
Okay, so what I would suggest for that is that because these things are put here as presentations to the committee in the chamber. What I think we also need is a work session calendar as well to complement this. And then we will determine a schedule for those as well. Thank you. I'm glad you didn't have, I told you, we're trying to help you all to be able to get it.
Oh, we're on board.
Oh,
So
everybody is.
I will informally share that I will re-share an updated version of this based on the discussion we had today, and make sure we get sort of consensus if there's additional topics. I really appreciate you sharing those. I think of like things that are timely, particularly related to you guys know your calendars really well about them. It's helpful. So I will share a revised version of this out, and then make sure we have that done, the beginning of next week, so that when we have our pre-meeting next week, a lot of you will be on our call next week on the 12th. Have that.
I would also suggest we have some great economists locally, and also outside that we use at our economic forum. You may enjoy having one of them come and talk about the economy, where we're going as a region, as a city, as a nation.
Are you suggesting that we do that next week?
No, I can't get them this week, next week. They've got calendars. These would be outside experts, right? One is from the Fed.
So what I would ask you guys to do is put together, these small workshop kinds of conversation, schedule for what you all would like to see. We would look at it and make sure that we are inputting as well, and then we'll look at a way of putting that calendar as well. You share that with, Perkins, and then we will do likewise the same based on discussion we've already had. Anything else? Who's serving lunch? Okay.
Oh, it's dinner time, Jeff.
How is it? So I
Actually, it's happy. What? Yeah.
There are people that got you. All right, so if there's no other items on the agenda that we need to discuss, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.